This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland front of the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Chaos Media family. I'm your host, Justin Roan. Support for this podcast is brought to you by Fubo TV. Watch over 100 channels of live sports and TV for half the cost of cable. There's no contract and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com. We've got a lot to talk about today, and joining me to do so is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Well, Justin, you might notice the podcast background is missing our beautiful logo because it fell off. I didn't secure it well. I haven't resecured it yet. And you know, sometimes that's life. You know, sometimes you don't do your due diligence. And I didn't. And I reaped what I sowed.
I just hung a very heavy mirror in the entranceway of my place.
That's very scary.
And now I'm like just expecting now that you've even raised the concept of something falling off of a wall.
Did you buy the mirror? Or did Trish buy the mirror?
Trish bought the mirror. It was very heavy.
I'll bet it's very trendy.
It's very heavy. I did put the drywall anchors in there, so we're probably okay.
So you did not mount the studs though. Is that what I'm hearing?
I did not mount the studs.
You're a wild boy.
I am a wild boy.
Well, I'll tell you what, the chase down thing was mounted with two command strips about the size of my pinky fingernail. So I knew I was playing with fire.
that is fair. We got so much to talk about, though, man. I'm so excited. We are, as we're recording, I guess, for those listening via podcast, we're going to be 2 weeks away from the first preseason game if you're listening to this on Wednesday morning.
Lordy.
Which is just awesome. I've been consuming as much Cavs content as I can because I'm so excited. Very excited that Wine and Gold Radio is back with our guys, Joe G and Rafa. I was just before we record this, I was listening to their interview with Nick Barlage, which was really interesting. I'm going to finish that up after the podcast. Make sure all our listeners go support them as well. Those guys are the best. But the other thing that I listened to that got me really excited recently, Carter, was the Donovan Mitchell press conference.
Oh, buddy, it was so great.
It was so much fun to see him up there. I thought the production looked great too. I guess they were doing it at Romo Fijo, and it was so exciting. I thought he killed it. There wasn't like as many like cliche answers as you would expect. I thought he was really honest and open throughout the whole thing, and it got me really fired up. And the other thing that's come from both the press conference and some of the pictures that have been posted on social is those white uniforms are so damn clean, man.
Yes, they are. It was pretty freaking fun. I won't lie. It just felt like, it felt like everything was coming together in a major way with Mitchell kind of being announced, being him getting to see him, in the flesh, it just it looked good. I feel like he really did say all the right things. And I'll tell you, it seemed like legitimately touched at the turnout at the airport for him.
Yeah, I got that impression as well. And I liked the fact that he gave such honest answers, like the fact that, hey, I expected to go to New York. Let's be honest. Everybody in the world expected him to land in New York. All the coverage was New York has the most picks to offer. They're going to bring him in. It made sense that he would say, yeah, I expected to go to New York. But once I recognized who we still had in Cleveland and who I'm going to get to play with, get to play for a team that was kind of my childhood team. All of that stuff was so awesome and so exciting and refreshing to hear an athlete give like an honest answer and just, hey, this is what I expected. Who wouldn't want to play at home? But this is clearly a better basketball situation. And it seems no one registered for me was that Salt Lake City doesn't have any other professional sports teams, because he seemed genuinely excited to like be able to go to Guardians games or Browns games and kind of take in what this city has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot of gets us, involved. Which was exciting. That's what you want to see. You want to see an athlete come. I think that all you ever want if you're Cleveland as a market is for a player to come in with an open mind and a good attitude, you know?
Mhm.
Like, I'm sure, like, he mentioned it, like, you know, who doesn't want to, you know, play in their own backyard, you know, when asked about the kind of the New York rumors. But I think, you know, I got no sense that there was any, like, you know, damn, I wish I had gotten to go to the Knicks. I think he, like, the second it was real, he was hyped, you know? And I do think that I do put a lot of stock in your first reaction to something, you know, and since his first reaction was jumping up and down and running around the golf course in glee, I think that is all I need to feel like he's going to fit. Also liked, you know, some of the accountability. You know, he talked about how, you know, the defense hasn't been good enough. He also, you know, it's funny, we had Tony Jones on, Jazz Athletic Beat reporter. If you haven't listened to that, you really should, because if you're trying to get a good sense of who this guy is, because Tony Jones is clearly super plugged in. And he talked about how he felt like Donovan Mitchell wasn't in good shape last year. And, you know, and you kind of got the impression, you know, Donovan didn't say that at the presser, but he did say it wasn't the kind of year I should have had. Yeah. He didn't feel like he had a great year, which I think is another good indicator. You know, I think when situations do go bad, I think, you know, it's very easy to just blame everyone around you. Be the kind of guy who just kind of casts aspersions at 6 through 10 on the roster for not being good enough. And it feels like there is a good degree of accountability with Mitchell, which means that I think that, you know, he should fit in here culturally, because that's been something I think JB has really prided himself on.
Not only does he seem like he's going to fit in culturally, I liked the fact that it was all, they had something special and I'm looking to add to it. It's not I'm going to come over here and you know what, like, I'm going to show everybody what it takes to win, and this is my team. I'm putting this on my back, and well, let's go, let's ride, to quote Russell Wilson. It wasn't that. It was, hey, like, I was training with Garland and he was pushing me to be better, like even before this trade even happened, and I'm working with these guys. They were half game out of the 1 seed at the All-Star break, and like just an understanding that, hey, this is like, I'm coming to be a part of something. I'm not going to be the sun with everything revolving around me. And I find that really refreshing. And like, from a fan perspective, it really like resonates with me, because the last time we had kind of one of these earth shattering moves where all of a sudden we're the talk of the NBA world, and it was obviously LeBron returning, but there wasn't really, like, outside of like Kyrie and Tristan basically being the only real holdovers, there wasn't anything that I had been like connecting to in the previous years that was still there, right? Like, it was all of a sudden the LeBron show. And what really makes me excited about this is we still have that connection to the stuff that really mattered to us, that resonated. And it sounds like Donovan Mitchell is coming to be a part of that. And that's just a completely different dynamic. And to me, like, it matters. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I was hoping for. I was hoping that this would occur when LeBron left the second time, that there was going to be some sort of identity that we can latch onto and build something organic. And this is it feels like all my best hopes and dreams are coming true with this kind of a deal.
Well, I remember right after the trade happened, it was I almost kind of like scolded myself mentally, or like it was almost like a little bit of a shocker when I was like, is he gonna fit culturally? Is he gonna come in and try to be the alpha and like try to come in and be like the leader, the vet who's done it, and come in with this, teach the kids how to play kind of vibe. And, there was a degree of like, I wasn't sure how I felt about that idea of having a big transformative personality in the locker room. And it was funny to even have to account for it after the last couple of years, where it's just like, let's just get some really good talent and we'll figure,
and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. So all of a sudden it was, I think a thing that had to be accounted for. And I don't know about you, but I'm just at the point where it's like, I'm not even worried about it a little bit. Like,
no, me either.
And, this is a small thing, and, maybe I'm being a little sycophantic or reading into too much and being a little too positive.
That's literally
that's your whole vibe. I know.
That's the thesis for this podcast.
I know.
But continue.
But I do think it was meaningful that he went to Nashville, went to Darius's turf for those runs right off the rip. I think that was a bit of a like, hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to be a part of something bigger than just me. So like, I was immediately interested in looking for evidence to see whether there would be personality, not even clashes, but just like desynchronizations between what the Cavs were and what they would be now. And like, I'm not really seeing those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I saw some people like being cynical, saying, hey, like he says he has Cavs fan in his email, but he was a LeBron fan, not a Cleveland or a Cavs fan. And like,
there's been a lot of discussion on Twitter.com about what team Donovan Mitchell is really a fan of when he was 12.
Like, for one, I don't care about it, but like, that's how fandom can start. Like for me, I was a LeBron fan, and that helped me like get integrated with the Cavs. And at the time of the decision, I know I've talked about this before, but I had no idea where my like loyalties and allegiances were going to side. But like I got won over by the city of Cleveland and the fans and the community and like just like the online discourse. Like that's what made me like transition from being a LeBron fan to a Cavs fan. And we've seen the city of Cleveland win players over when they actually get to give it a chance, and when they come to town, like Channing, RJ, JR, like all these guys, they speak so fondly of Cleveland and are still like present in the community at times. And like I just think when you look at Donovan Mitchell coming into such a good basketball situation, when the basketball situation's good and the vibes are really good, I have no doubt that the city of Cleveland's going to win him over, because that's what this city does. It's some of the best fans in the league. And like, for me, it's a story that I can identify with, starting off as a LeBron fan and gradually falling in love with the city of Cleveland.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Speaking of young Donnie Mitch, how weird is it that he wasn't in the league when we won the title? It is so jarring to me, because it feels like he's been around a long time.
Talking about like talking trash to his friends at Louisville when the Cavs won the championship, because he was saying that the Cavs were going to win and everyone was doubting him. Like
either he's so young or we're old. Probably a bit of both.
And at the same time, like he's the oldest of this core. Like I was looking back at it, and like I think DG was like 14 when the Cavs won the championship. Like this is truly absurd. We're definitely getting old. Like I'm looking at the grays in the screen right now. We're getting old, but these guys are also just still incredibly young.
Yeah, it was really I don't know, for some reason that one was hard for me to process. I actually had to go look it up. I'm like, did he get confused? Which is the dumbest reaction to someone telling a story. Did Donovan Mitchell forget how old he was? I'd better
You're just
fact
so
check
used
him.
to fact checking.
I'd better fact check him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I think it really does click into place, like just how young this guy still is. Freshly 26 years old. And it's really, really exciting.
Man, I had a couple of those moments this week because the NBA tweeted out it was Brandon Clark and Precious Achiuwa's birthday on the same day. And I was like, Jared Allen's a year older than Precious and 2 years younger than Brandon Clark.
That's
like
crazy. Wait, he's 2 years younger than Brandon Clark?
He's 2 years younger than Brandon Clark.
Was Brandon Clark like a 27-year-old? Was he Van Wilder?
No, he was only 22. But that's just absolutely wild to think about when you look at just how young this core is. And actually, when I was listening to a lot of national podcasts, they kind of had the same thing where they're like, yeah, Mitchell's like the same age as like Jared Allen. Jared Allen's like 27. And then they like every time they get corrected that he's 24, and it's like, whoa. Okay, well, that changes things a little bit. But we do have some Cavs news just via Chris Fedor. I saw this before we were coming on. Sharif Cooper and Nate Hinton have signed to camp deals along with Mamadi Diatke and Jamorko Pickett. I looked up pictures of Pickett, and his hand size is not small, so that's definitely a good thing because I know this.
We're not. If you're looking for the in-depth breakdown on the camp invites, this ain't your podcast.
No,
that's
no,
what you're hearing right now.
Yeah, I don't believe any of these have yet been confirmed by the team. But you know what? Like the Sharif Cooper one's interesting to me because I know we were kind of high on him and like, hey, maybe the Cavs could like add a late first round pick, or I guess especially when he fell into the second, we're like, that would be an interesting guy given that he played with Okoro in high school, and I think he's like a brilliant passer. So you know that would be an interesting flyer.
I didn't realize his sister was Taya Cooper, who played for the Sparks for a while.
I didn't realize that either. So, you know, that's an interesting guy to root for. But, you know, with these camp deals, maybe these guys are going to end up with a charge. I think if some of these guys, especially Sharif, if he's playing on the charge with Isaiah Mobley, it's pretty much a lock that the entire Cavs team will be there to watch basically every time they can. So that's a lot of fun. The other bit of league news, per Shams, the proposed age limit could change from 19 to 18 as soon as the 2024 draft. I was
Justin,
listening
what draft do the Cavs still have their first pick in?
They still have their pick in 2024. And I was listening to the GOAT podcast this morning with our good buddies Andrew Sharp and Ben Gulliver. And Ben was pointing out the fact that deal points like this leaking is probably a good sign that CBA negotiations are in a healthy place and there isn't major sticking points, because they wouldn't leak things that's like, hey, we've kind of come to terms on this and agreed with that, if there were major things that are still being disputed. So that's a good sign, because obviously we are hoping for basketball to continue and for there not to be lockouts. But if that rule were to change and all of a sudden one and done is gone and the 2024 draft becomes the double draft, that would obviously be significant, because that would dramatically improve that draft class. You could potentially be doubling up with players in that draft. And like you said, that would be a very good year to still have your pick if that's how this played out.
I wonder how frenzied that draft will be. Like, how many high schoolers will throw their name in the ring? You know, part of me is not to do the classic Carter wet blanket routine, but part of me wonders, like, you know, from what I remember, there were only ever like 3 or 4 high school guys in most drafts. You know,
there's only been a trickle of guys to the G League Ignite route, right?
So I'll be interested to see, you know, how much the vaunted quote unquote double draft actually yields. I think if there's ever going to be a draft where there's a huge outpouring of high schoolers, it's probably gonna be the first one back. Where players are really hyped, which means, you know, some talented guys that are a little riskier coming out of high school might fall a little later in the draft, or, you know, the inverse, you know, more polished prospects that we have some tape on but aren't as high ceiling maybe drop a little bit later. You know, but I do think it's an exciting, if nothing else, I think inflates the value of that pick a little bit if it ends up happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could potentially deflate the value of 2025 picks, right? If that draft class, thought. If that draft class all of a sudden is like the top tier prospects in that going to 2024, it's going to take a year for the market to kind of reset, and then in 2026 it would be a little more normalized. So all
do you
things
remember
to consider,
that first draft after the one and done rule was implemented? How dire that was.
It was dark. That was very, very
not
dark.
Fun.
That was dark right there. But we should move along and get into the meat of this episode. I'm really excited for this, Carter. It's time for us to take out our crystal balls and figure out what our bold predictions are for this season, and yell at each other for our bold predictions. So we're going to go with 3 Cavs predictions as well as 3 just NBA general predictions. And I'll let you start off, buddy.
Oh, okay. Well, this is fun. I think I'm going to go with my biggest one first, just to kind of get the vibes going. I think Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are both going to make all defensive teams this year.
Ooh, I like that.
Here's the line of thinking. I think that people are going to come in with the expectation that the Cavs have downgraded defensively with Darius and Donovan in the backcourt, getting a little smaller, maybe losing a bit of that tall ball identity. And they're going to say, oh, Mobley and Allen are going to have to do everything. And I think that the Cavs are still going to be a top 5, top 6 defense with plenty of highlight defensive plays to boot. And all of the credit, fair or not, even if Donovan and Darius and Isaac are holding their own on the perimeter, I think all the credit will be going to Evan and Jarrett, and thus they will might split votes for Defensive Player of the Year over the next 3-4 years. I think they are both going to make the all-defensive team this year. Your thoughts?
I think that's a really good take. I think it's going to be impacted by how much team success they have. Like if the Cavs go out and they get home court, if they're a 3 or 4 seed, I think that helps you a lot in these award races. And absolutely, like I agree that the tandem of them, assuming that both of them are healthy and they have progressed from last season, I think this isn't that bold of a take. But again, I am a homer, and I
think it's pretty bold, dude. There's only 10 spots, buddy.
These guys are special though. Like Mobley came I think 2 BAM at forward votes away from making the all defensive team. Like if these guys are healthy for a full season and the Cavs are as good as we think they can be, I think that these guys have a really, really good shot. They are 2 of the best defensive players in the NBA, full stop. Like, and we've talked about their age before. It's probably fair to assume that they're going to get younger or
get younger. I don't think so, Justin.
You know, that's up is down and people age backwards. I think they're going to get better. So I don't think this is that bold, but again, I'm a crazy person and I'm a homer too. So at this time of year, I'm all for these kind of predictions.
God, I know, by the way, I know highlight reels live, but if you're watching on YouTube, some of those plays where Jared Allen is switching on to Jason Tatum and really moving well with him. God, I think he is still a little bit underrated as a switch defender.
100%. Remember when he won the game against Portland because he switched on to Dame? He's the man.
He's awesome.
I'm going to go against our defenses for nerds stance on this podcast, Carter, and I'm going to go defense as well to start off. My prediction is Isaac Okoro's ability to defend the 3 is not going to be questioned after this season. I think this is one of the silliest things that I see Cavs fans regularly do, but there seems to be this narrative that people are just going to shoot over Isaac Okoro because of, I guess, in his rookie season when he was primarily defending small forwards. You had kind of those games where LeBron would get a lot of points against him or whatever the case may be. I just don't understand it. Isaac Okoro actually has a longer standing reach than Jay Crowder, who plays primarily at the power forward position. Same goes for Royce O'Neal, who plays a lot of power forward. Like height and length is not the issue for Okoro. I just think sometimes our expectations get a little warped because he's already so good, so young defensively, and anytime that he's not kind of like clamping someone down or holding them to 33% shooting because the offense isn't there, it's okay. How is he actually contributing if these players shoot well against him? We've talked about it before, how I think him improving his physicality and bothering guys and getting them out of the rhythm matters a lot when it comes to him on the defensive end. But I fully believe that Isaac Okoro is capable of defending small forwards in the NBA. No matter what their length is. Like I don't get the idea of if his forehead was built like Peyton Manning's, he would be a better defensive player. Like that standing reach is what really matters.
Yeah, I do think there is something about there is value in just, in that extra inch or 2 in height and in wingspan.
Of course.
But to your point, I do think he is more than capable of bothering people. And I think in a lot of ways, he is kind of a victim of some outdated mindsets. I mean, it is a lot different playing guarding big wings when you have Evan and Jarrett protecting you as well, Mm-hmm. And we really didn't see him do it last year. I think that's another thing. It's we didn't see him often get those assignments last year, just due to the way that the team was constructed. So the only evidence we have, the only time we've seen Isaac guard the 3 is when the team's defense was kind of lousy.
In a rookie season where he didn't have a preseason and barely had a camp.
Yeah, exactly. That's not an argument against him. I think it's actually an argument for him.
Oh no, yeah, I'm just adding to your point.
So I think it makes a lot of sense. Do I think there are some limitations? And the fact that there is a bit of a frustration, I think, that will persist because he's not an event defender.
Mm-hmm.
He is not someone who gets a ton of steals, not someone who gets a lot of blocks, not even a huge deflections guy.
Yeah.
So I think that stuff will linger, and that's where like that extra bit of length and extra bit of size might help if you're going to just be an ISO defender. You want to really envelop guys. So I think some of the concerns are valid, but especially within the construct of this team, not super duper worried about it right now.
Yeah, I'm a believer in that. I'm a believer of Okoro going into the season. Like, I just think the team context around him is really going to help him out. But the defensive side is where I feel most strongly about, and that's not exactly bold because he's been so good to this point. But I just think the whole kind of like shoot over narrative is just a little bit overblown.
I would agree. I think that's fair to say.
I'm going to go back to back here, Carter. And my first league prediction, I want to get your thoughts on this. The Sacramento Kings will have a better record than the LA Lakers.
Oh, that's an interesting take. I don't think I agree with it.
I'm a little upset because Low Post talked about the Kings today, and I was sitting here on this take, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to be that guy that's in on the Kings. I think they're going to have a better season than expected. And they went in on the Kings. They were talking up the virtues of them, which made me feel better about my take. But I just think with the Lakers, like, injuries are obviously going to be a massive factor. Like, I think if the Lakers start off healthy for the first 30 games, they're going to have the better record. But I think that the Kings are going to be a play-in team, probably have them about 9th in the Western Conference, and I don't think that's going to be the case for the Lakers. So I am in on the Kings, and I'm trying to be positive with these bold preseason predictions. So this is more of a Kings thing than a Lakers thing. I like that roster. I think they had a good offseason.
Yeah, I like their roster too. I'm a Sabonis fan and stan. I just adore low post scorers. I'm
also just a sucker for teams getting over the hump. Like any cursed fan base, I'm going to be rooting for you.
I think their roster is really strong. 1 through 8, 1 through 9. Their 9th best guy, is pretty freaking good. It might be Davion Mitchell, a guy like that. Added Kevin Huerter, added Keegan Murray, who's looked awesome in summer league. Still have Harry Barnes, still have De'Aaron Fox. They look really good. There's no way around it. What really good means is a matter of perspective. It's funny. I don't mind the 8-9 spot for them. I just think the Lakers might be a little bit better. I have some suspicions about that Lakers team. That I kind of have it in my heart to zag on them a little bit. And that actually,
if they're healthy this season, like if LeBron and AD play 70 games, this is going to be wrong. But I just don't trust that at this point.
Well, I think, the reality is I think I'd probably put the Lakers 8th this season. And the Jazz 9, or I'm sorry, the Kings 9. So it's
the Jazz 9.
No, Jazz will be at the bottom.
I'm rooting for those guys.
Rooting for them, but I don't think so.
Once a Cav, always a Cav. But I just don't see that in the cards for them.
Yeah. So like I think that it that actually takes me to my NBA take, which I think the Lakers are going to be in the top 8 in the end. I think they will get out of the play, and I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think that if you look at the West right now, the middle class is enormous. And pretty wide ranging. Like I think if you kind of tier it out, I think Phoenix, Memphis, Golden State, Dallas, and Denver, they're all like and maybe Minnesota is in that group of like absolute locks. So you have like 5 or 6 absolute locks, but then I think New Orleans, I think the Clippers are more of a question mark than people realize.
I agree there.
The Mavs are kind of a bummer with their roster right now. One Luka injury, and they're in a weird spot now that they've lost Brunson, lost their secondary ball handler. I don't know. I just think that area of the West is going to be pretty freaking competitive, especially with the Jazz and Spurs yeeting themselves out of the conversation very intentionally. So like I think that I really like the idea of this Lakers team because they didn't have any good players last year. And they've added some good players. Not like great players, but
they've added NBA players. They did not have a lot of NBA rotation players last season, like full stop.
Yeah.
They do this year.
Yeah, guys like they Austin Reeves was like the third most important player on the team last year. Now he's, properly the 9th or 10th most important guy on the team.
Plus, there's the possibility that they do one of like the rumored or reported trades, like trading Westbrook for all the Jazz role players. Like
if they can get the
help.
Pacers, the rumored or just this oft discussed Pacers deal done.
Miles Turner's never being traded, Carter. We can write that off at this point.
Yeah, he's going to be 60 years old in trade rumors. But if they were able to do like a healed Turner McConnell type of package, like, oh my goodness, that team has a lot of juice all of a sudden. So like, I don't know. I think that if AD isn't really, really, really great anymore, I guess that's a different conversation. But I'm going to bet that he's at least really, really good. And to that end, that is why the Lakers will be my pick for. I think they're gonna probably be in the plan, but they're gonna get out of it.
I can see a path to it. I think you're going to be wrong, but
I can see that.
I can.
Isn't it weird that LeBron will make the playoffs is a bold prediction?
Well, with the Lakers, that actually kind of is a bold prediction. So, you know what? I'd like to see it again. Once a Cav, always a Cav, and that goes double for LeBron James. So it would be nice if the last productive years of his career aren't wasted. My prediction here, Carter, is by the end of the season, it will be consensus that Darius Garland is the Cavs' best player. And I say this with the expectation that Donovan Mitchell is going to have a career best season in terms of efficiency. I think he's going to get up to that kind of 60% true shooting percentage. I think his numbers are going to be very similar. Like, I don't think there's going to be a drop off in his counting stats. I just think that Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell together, I think people are kind of underselling just how good they are going to be as a tandem and how much better they're going to make one another. And if you had to guess, Carter, the starting lineup for the Cavs, so Garland, Okoro, Lowry, Mobley, and Allen, where do you think their offensive rating would rank in the league last season?
Last year's starting lineup?
Yes. Just that lineup, their O rating.
12th?
Third.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
They had the third highest O rating. Of course, like if you do 5-man lineups, there's other teams that had lineups that were a little bit better. But in terms of lineups that actually played like the 225 minutes that they played or more, they were still, I think, like only like 8 teams had a lineup that was better than them individually. Garland was that good. And the presence of someone with the pull-up threat that DG has makes a pick and roll that much more potent. And I think when you have 2 of those guys that are 99 percentile as shooters in terms of shooting talent, in terms of playmaking talent, that can play on and off ball, I think it's going to make Mobley and Allen that much more potent. I think it's going to make the offense that much more potent. And going from if we're assuming that starting lineup, just swap Lowry for Donovan Mitchell, that's going to be a really, really dangerous lineup. Of course, the D rating for that unit would have been best in the league as well. Like, that was a really, really good starting 5. And when I think of Garland and Mitchell together, we're in football season right now. We're coming off of week 2. I think of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The way that teams can't shade off of either. If you double one, you are going to get burnt by the other. Shout out to our buddy Ziggy, Dolphins.
I was about to say, you've been talking too much to Ziggy and Nam.
And Nam as well. But that's exactly what I think of. I think they're going to be incredibly hard to defend, and we're probably overthinking it because here's another stat, just to reinforce my point of how good this tandem is going to be. The Steph Curry, Klay Thompson backcourt in 2016 took 19.3 threes a game. Mitchell and Garland last year together took almost 17 threes a game. And I think that number is going to increase from Garland's side. Having that kind of gravity, that kind of 3-point volume with the off the dribble game and playmaking is going to be incredibly difficult to defend no matter who they have around them.
I think it's an interesting take. I don't think it's that bold, by the way. I think it's certainly. I think Darius is a guy who already has the that boy nice rep around the league. Like everyone knows that this dude is awesome. I think he has really positive juice around him. I think if Donovan does have a career year in terms of efficiency, I bet a lot of credit also goes to Darius because Darius is such an elite playmaker. You know, I someone in our chat just said, you know, I see a Steve Nash season for Darius, and like, I think that's, you know, I've always loved that comp for him.
I think he can average 23 and 10.
Yeah, so even if he doesn't get to 23, like, you know, if he completely if he remains the lead orchestrator of the offense while being a volume scorer, it's not a huge leap to say. I still think. Do I think that anyone will put him above Mobley long term anytime soon? No, but I do think in the short term, it's. I think I agree with you that I think the vast majority of NBA fans and viewers would say Mitchell's the best player in the team right now, and I think there is a very good chance that they change their answer at the end of the year.
Yeah, I guess my point was a little more about the discourse around them, because even if you look last year, like EPM from dunks and threes is probably my favorite catch-all metric. Garland and Mitchell are right next to each other, like almost identical in terms of their EPM last season.
So you're saying your bold prediction is that they're going to be good?
I think they're going to be really
that's good stuff, Justin. I'm proud of you.
But
you really went for it there.
Oh yeah, I'm going out on a limb. I didn't necessarily specify bold with these predictions, but I just think if Garland is, and I predict that I think he's going to remain kind of the lead orchestrator of the offense. And what makes this group of players so interesting and so great is the fact that their strengths complement one another. Like Donovan's obviously going to be the leading scorer on this team. I don't think that I would be very surprised if it played out any other way. He's going to be the leading play finisher, but Garland is so unselfish, and his best brings out the best in others. So I'm really, really excited to have two guards this dynamic and this good of a pairing together. Like I think this is going to rock, and I think people are not yet prepared for just how good these two are going to be together and how good they're going to make the offense. Because like I said, I think the offense, when they were healthy last season, was better than people realized.
Well, Justin, from two big names to another, from my secondary prediction, Robin Lopez. I think Robin Lopez is gonna play at least half of the Cavaliers games this year. I think that there is an expectation, probably rightfully so, that Evan Mobley is the team's like primary backup five, and that Robin Lopez is here for the vibes, here to help bang with the Joel Embiids and Nikola Jokic's of the world, and be a great spot filler in case of injury. I just have a weird suspicion, and maybe this is a little NBA 2K23 informed.
I was going to say he's in that rotation for sure in 2K,
because he's really hard to keep off the floor in 2K, because it's just really nice to have a secondary defensive anchor that lets Evan continue to play free safety. Yeah. And I just, JB is a relatively practical coach. Like, he cares about development, he cares about all that, all the long game stuff. But then I do think there is a degree of practicality with him where he's like, hey, every time I play Robin, we do pretty well. And Robin Lopez has a long career of, when I get on the floor, I help. And I just think that there is, at some point in the season, whether it's due to injury, whether it's due to lineup data, he's going to come to that conclusion and stay uber big a little more often. What are your thoughts?
I don't hate it. I did knock on wood throughout this whole thing because I'm a little concerned about the implications of this. But you know that I'm a big believer in Mobley is at his best at the power forward position, because that allows him to roam, that allows him to play that free safety role, and I think that's where he can be the most dynamic defensively. And if playing Robin Lopez and giving him some spot minutes helps you keep Jared Allen a little more fresh, keep Mobley in his ideal role, And especially if like nobody really kind of steps up and takes those other backup power forward minutes that are up for grabs, assuming that Kevin Love stays at 14, keeping Mobley at that position a little more, even if it's just specific matchups, it makes a lot of sense. So I kind of like this take more as you were explaining it than I did looking at in the rundown. I can see the path
It's a
to
sell.
this making a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Carter.
And our boy Ben in the chat, who we love dearly, just mentioned that Lopez sets those screens that this team will need. Lopez, an elite screen setter.
You know what? We're going to be all about screen assists. We get someone from Utah, and that's now what we have.
That's what we care about. But jokes aside, that does matter. This was a team that when Jarrett Allen wasn't on the floor couldn't set screens. I think we know how much Karras benefits from them. We know how much Darius and Donovan will benefit from them. Like I just have this feeling. I feel it in my plums that it's going to happen, Justin.
I like it. You know what I feel in my plums, Carter?
Tell me about it.
I feel like the NBA champion this year. You thought I was going to an ad read. I'm not going to ad read.
Now you were going to go to an ad read. That was a swerve.
I think the NBA champion this season is going to be a team that hasn't won it this past decade. I think we're going to see a relatively new champion in the NBA. I don't have a great sense for who it's going to be. I'm casting a wide net here, but I think the Denver Nuggets are going to be really good. I think the Clippers are going to be dangerous. I think the Phoenix Suns are still being a little overlooked. Boston is a bit of a cheat here because last time they won was 2008. I think they're going to be really, really good. And I think there's some other dark horse teams, like as much as I don't like them, and I think the Cavs can now give them a bit of a challenge. Philly is going to be dangerous. Memphis still has all of their picks. Who knows if they make a big move at the deadline? Like maybe Kevin Durant's disgruntled and they trade their future away in some of their young guys and the depth that they have, because they're in a very similar situation and position that the Cavs were in with a lot of depth and a lot of picks. Maybe they do a consolidation move and that gets them over the hump. I think we're going to see a new NBA champion, a relatively new NBA champion this season.
That actually perfectly our league takes are kind of segueing well into each other, because my segue, my NBA take is that the Nuggets will be the runaway 1 seed, and what I didn't write, I think they'll win the title. This team is awesome, Justin. If they are healthy, I think they could even absorb an injury not to Jokic, obviously, but like if, let's say, Porter misses a round or two, or Murray misses a round, I think they can still advance, because this team just makes so much sense. I loved their trade of Will Barton and Monte Morris for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I think he is exactly the archetype they've just been missing. Just a athletic defender that doesn't do anything but shoot threes. Their playmaking with Porter, with Murray, with Jokic is exceptional. I think
even Bruce Brown.
I was getting there. I think KCP and Gordon are the perfect flankers for that trio of scorers in terms of, relatively low usage. Like, I actually kind of appreciated the way Gordon, amended his game when Murray was healthy. I kind of thought he might still try to be that guy, and I don't think he really was early on. Obviously, he had to try to be more of that last year when they were banged up as hell. And then, you mentioned him, Bruce Brown is the perfect Denver Nuggets role player. This guy is going to feast. Not only has the corner three gotten so much better, basically shot the Cavs out of the game against Brooklyn, just hitting dagger after dagger after dagger. He is going to pair perfectly with Jokic, being a roamer on defense and also being a roamer on offense. Super savvy player. I think I liked the Christian Brown pickup in the draft. I think that's a prototypical wing that's going to be able to actually play some helpful minutes. Guys like Zeke Naji are very helpful. Don't like the DeAndre Jordan pickup. That makes me a little nervous. But Jeff Green's still got a little bit of juice left. I think if you're worried about anything,
both of those guys, locker room vibes, Carter. That's all you got to worry about.
Absolutely. I think if you're worried about one thing, is Bones Highland ready to be like a playoff player as opposed to like a fun young point guard? But like, I just think this team makes so much sense, dude. And I think they are awesome, and I think they're my pick to win the title right now. if
I really
healthy.
like that. I don't think Bonesy even necessarily needs to be a playoff player. Like he can be that microwave guy off the bench. Like Jordan Poole was basically that, where the Warriors were like, hey, like you're not a 16 game player, but you know what? You can go out and hit some shots. We're going to cut back your minutes in certain situations. Other ones, when you're rolling and hot, will go to you. Like I think they have enough depth to do it. I really like this pick. Be great if they did win a championship. I think that's a really fun market. Jamal Murray winning a championship would be great for Canada and therefore the world. So I'm here for it. I like this take a lot. I'm in on the Denver Nuggets. If they're healthy, I think they have a legitimate shot, even though I just saw Nikola Jokic lose to Italy in Euro Cup.
Tough.
Man, that, like them losing to Italy and then
Gigi Datome is just going to be collecting bodies in European play till he's 50.
Luka losing to Poland too is just another reminder that one-off basketball is a wild animal, and FIBA's a different game, but single elimination, anything can happen, and that's the beauty of basketball. I love international basketball. I think it's great.
It was I think it was one of the best Euro baskets I've ever seen. Just there's so much talent on every team. It was really cool. It was a really fun time, and yes, thank God we do not build like. Imagine being as big of a football fan as you are a basketball fan and dealing with single elimination every year. Oh,
I completely agree with you. I think Eurobasket was the best we've seen, and the best provider that I've seen for this podcast is Zoom. Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects.
I don't think that was your best work.
It wasn't. It was. I
think you should have just gone into the segue personally.
You had a good, like, you kind of gave me an on-ramp there, and then you kept talking.
I took it. I'm sorry.
And I did not have a plan B. So I was like, you know what?
It's like when you're trying to merge and the person just won't let you in. That was me, and I'm sorry, buddy.
I think it's your time to give another prediction, Carter.
All right. I think Karis LeVert is going to get the first crack at backup point guard this year. I think they're going to give all the backup 1 and most of the backup 2 minutes to Karis. I just got this feeling that it's the easiest road to giving him the role that he kind of expected. I think he's got the pedigree, and they invested in this guy. Like, I think when you invest in a player, there is a degree of like, teams can sometimes overinvest. I don't know if that's what this would be, but like, I think he's going to get a shot at it. Like, as you've noted, during the offseason before they signed Ricky and Raul Neto, LeVert's playmaking metrics are pretty darn good.
Yep.
And with a healthy team, he should have the chance to play with really good pick and roll partners. And both Donovan and Darius should be able to play with him just fine because of his size. So I think that I just have a suspicion that, especially since I kind of still get the feeling that JB likes a tighter rotation. Like, even if JB has 11 guys to play, I think his heart is going to tell him to play 8 or 9. I just think
you're contradicting yourself with your Robin Lopez. Robin Lopez is making the 8.
No, but I think that especially with those 3 guards, Donovan, Darius, and Karis, I think there's a real world in which the 48 minutes, the 1 and the 2 are kind of split among those 3 pretty heavily. I think there's going to be a lot of minutes to start the season without a guy like Neto on the floor, even when Darius is sitting. What do you think about this take?
I agree with your premise. I think you're getting to the wrong conclusion. I think Donovan Mitchell is going to be that backup point guard.
Well, sure. I think it's going to be interchangeable with those two.
Yeah, but we talked about it before of what pairings we see the most, and I think Karis is going to play a lot of minutes with Garland. Like, I think even if Karis is the ball handler in those minutes and kind of gives DG a bit of a break and he can play off ball and, you kind of do a little your turn, my turn kind of ball handling thing, I think DG and Karras is going to be more of the tandem, and Mitchell is either going to maybe play with Karras, but I think I see him with Neto or maybe just wings, right, where he is playing as the backup point guard. So
I guess really what I was saying is I don't think Neto is going to be in the rotation to start the year. I think Karras or heavily in the rotation. I think Karras will eat a lot of those minutes that maybe I in 2K, who I'm a purist, Justin. I always want a point guard on the floor. I might not do that, but I think JB has I have a suspicion that JB will give most of the minutes I might give to Neto and eventually Rubio to Karras to start the year.
I mean, we get compared to LeBron James a lot on this here podcast, but I think using 2K to figure out rotations is one more trait that we share.
Listen, we're astute observers of the game, though. Justin, I don't bastardize the game. I actually I play on sim settings. I play on 10-minute quarters, and you're playing on 5 still, if I recall correctly.
I play with 6-minute quarters. Thank you very much.
And a prorated 164 points a game. You're a terrible person.
I got to do the normalize the stats to the sim minutes, man. You got to do it. But no, I agree with that take more, that the ball handling is going to be divided up amongst those three. But I think when it comes to kind of backup point guard, I think that's functionally going to be Donovan Mitchell, because I think that is going to be the best way to kind of continue to get him those reps and stagger him and Garland. But I definitely agree. Like I think Karras is going to be tasked with ball handling and playmaking and initiating some offense, because that's his strength, right? And if you're going to be testing out whether or not Caris LeVert is a fit, because that's going to be part of the process this season, right? Is do we want to keep him around long term? We need to evaluate what Caris can bring to the table within the context of this team. You're going to need to give him those ball handling reps. So I agree with that. If your take is that Neto might not get as many minutes as we expect to start the season.
Oh yeah, brother. Take us to should we do your last league take so we can close on Cavs? Or you want to close on or do you want to do your next Cavs take?
I'm going to go. Yeah, let's go league. Let's go league here. I've got a take. And it's that by the end of the season, the conversation will have shifted from Evan Mobley versus Scotty Barnes to Cade Cunningham versus Evan Mobley. I think Cade Cunningham takes a major leap forward. And just like all the draft podcasts went down the drain after we traded Ochai Agbaji, I think all our rivalry podcasts are going to be maybe a little out of touch, because now the Cavs are a better team. And I think the natural rival for the Cavs is Detroit. I think that is a great rivalry in the making. I believe in Detroit long term. I think the season they're going to have is going to be similar to the Cavs in 2020, 2021, where they get off to a hot start. Everyone says, hey, look, there's potential. Like 10, 20 games into the season, they're in that mix. They're in a play-in spot. And then that youth and inexperience or injuries or whatever the case may be kind of takes them out of it. But I think Cade Cunningham is special. I like what Detroit is putting together. I think they're just a little too young and inexperienced. But I think Cade really cements his status as a future cornerstone in the league. And I think that kind of the storyline of him versus Evan Mobley, I think that's going to overshadow even what Scotty Barnes does. And I think Scotty is going to be a multiple-time All-Star. I think Toronto's going to be very good. But I just think that when you're talking like franchise cornerstone, to me, Cade Cunningham is a little above that. And maybe this is me just once again hoping that I'm right and going back to my draft takes where I thought Cade and Mobley were 1A and B in that draft.
Yeah, I like the Cade part. I think everyone's getting a little too early on the Pistons. They were outscored by just under 8 points a game last year. They got younger. They got younger. Traded their their best most seasoned player. And I just think there is a degree of we shouldn't understate how rare what the Cavs did last year was. Young teams that stink don't just get awesome very often.
I'm comparing them to a Cavs team that drafted 3rd overall and got Evan Mobley.
Yeah, the Pistons just drafted very high and got Jaden Ivey, who might be awesome. So like there's a road to it. I just think it's very unlikely. And I think that especially with the trade for Mitchell, I think that they are no longer on, I think they're 2 development curves away from each other right now.
So I agree with that. I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm saying that the season they are about to have is like the 2020-21 Cavs, where the Cavs, that season ended with the Cavs picking 3rd. Like, I think they might start off hot, and I think Cade is going to establish himself as a really special player, but they're still going to suck. They are still going to pick high in the draft at the end of the year. I just think that Cade Cunningham is going to be one of those talents that it is just so obvious how good he is that you might even hear him in all-star conversations no matter what the record is. I think he's that kind of talent.
I agree with that. I just the thing about the rivalry, the Cavs-Pistons rivalry, I just think they're a little too far apart from each other.
That's a 2025, 2026 kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, I like the Cade take. I think that probably should already be the conversation, frankly.
I agree.
And even though,
I think him missing the start of the season made people kind of like overlook just how good he was for the rest of the year.
He
but
was
like,
unbelievable for the back half of the year.
He's got that dog in him.
Absolutely. So my last take, I think the T-Wolves are going to come within at minimum a couple games away from the Western Conference Finals. I love this team, Justin.
I really like them too.
I think that there is too much hand-wringing from armchair GMs, wannabe Sam Hinkies on Twitter.com about the pick compensation. Sure, it's too much. Who cares?
Once again, a disappointing Eurobasket finish for Rudy Gobert.
You're telling me. Well, but nevertheless, I think that there is a little too much made of Rudy's, postseason defensive woes. There's still this idea that you can pull him out. I just don't know if that's the case. And I think much like, Mobley and Allen were able to insulate a guy like Markkanen in successful lineups. I think Gobert and guys like Kyle Anderson are going to do a great job of insulating Karl Anthony Towns. I think this will be the first year where we see Karl Anthony Towns in a lot of lineups that put on the clamps defensively.
I agree, and honestly, Ant has made some big strides on the defensive end of the court. I think his on-ball defense is pretty good. D'Lo is playing pretty decent defense at times last year too. I agree with you, and I think when you look at the playoff shortcomings for Utah, a lot of kind of the Rudy Gobert defense stuff was because Donovan Mitchell was not playing good defense. He was letting guys get by him so much, and I think you heard that in the accountability that Donovan had in the press conference, and I think that can obviously turn around, and we've talked about it with Tony Jones that he can play better individual defense, but I think too often he was the punching bag because the perimeter was just allowing drive after drive after drive, and he's not Jared Allen or Evan Mobley in the sense that he can get out and play in space, and he certainly doesn't have a tandem of dudes like that, right? So I definitely agree. As much as I like to make jokes because I find him to be a little corny with the public persona and whatnot, I do think it did go too far and was a little unfair at times.
Absolutely, Justin. Take us home with your final Cavaliers prediction.
Lean in, Carter. You're going to want to lean in for this one. The Cavs are going to win a playoff series.
I couldn't agree more, buddy.
We are going to host a playoff series and win that playoff series.
Host and win. I think that is more likely than most things. I think. I think
what a strong take. More likely than most things.
I think if they host, I think they'll win. And I love the take. I think there's a lot of good logic behind it. I think that this is a team that's built to succeed in the regular season in a way that a lot of these other East contenders aren't. And at that point, now they have a certified playoff killer with them.
Yeah,
that matters. So yeah, I do think that there is a lot of logic behind that take. And this team, I think they're ready, man. I think they got just enough seasoning that they at least should be aiming for it. I don't know if the season's a disaster if they don't, win. But I do think it is I think as likely as it is unlikely at this point.
I obviously I agree because I picked the Cavs to win a series. I have a really good feeling about this, and like I said, a lot of this is based on the belief I have in Garland and Mitchell as a pairing and Mobley and Allen as a pairing. And if this team is healthy for a good portion of the regular season, I think that this team has the depth. I think they have the high-end talent. I think they have the supporting pieces to be a home court team. And that gets us to the Cavs win total predictions. And I'll let you go first, Carter.
Well, first off, I want to note that Billy, our dear friend of the Discord, said that's some room temperature water take out of this one. And a win total? That the question?
I want you to give me your total of how many games the Cavs are going to win this season.
I remain pretty steadfast at 49 or 50.
Okay.
I think that is a fair jump for a high parity Eastern Conference. 5 more wins than last year. People I don't think understand how rare it is to jump 5 games. That's actually that is quite a meaningful difference. If the Cavs won 40, if they won 49 games last year, they're the 5 seed, and comfortably in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So I think that is where I'm landing with them. Though I think there's a pretty good case for them to go higher if they really come out with like an FU attitude to start the year.
Yep, This is how my brain works, Carter, because I was going to go 51, but then when you said 49 or 50, I'm like, I can't go 1 win more than Carter. Like that's just wrong. So I'm going to go with 52. I'm going to go with 52 wins. Mark it down. I feel good about that number. I think the Cavs were already on pace to be a 50-win team last year. So if they are reasonably healthy with the addition of Donovan Mitchell, with internal growth, I think that even in an improved Eastern Conference, even in an Eastern Conference that is going to be taking the Cavs more seriously, I think that they can get over that 50-win threshold. And I mean, if they can accomplish that in the regular season, I think this year is a win no matter what happens in the postseason. But I think that gives them the best chance and the highest probability of winning a playoff series if they can go out and have a regular season like that.
What % chance do you think it is that the Cavs are the 1 seed?
Oh man, you are feeding into some of my worst instincts as a fan here. You really are. That's not even something I've thought about.
I know, it just occurred to me.
I feel like if you put a gun to my head, I'd say 4th. I feel not terrible about 3rd. And you know what?
What % chance do you think that they will get the 1 seed?
I'm
demanding an answer.
I'm like 5%. Like
I was going higher. I think there's 10%.
I'm going to set modest expectations here.
That's classic you. I just think that I think that if they get that, it's one of those 1 seed that is like the 4th or 5th best odds to win the conference still, because everyone's at like 52 wins and the Cavs just happen to be at 53. Exactly. A Miami Heat 1 seed. But with a team with
Toronto
upside.
Raptors 1 seed.
But again, with the team with actual upside.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't think Toronto had that back then either. Or the Atlanta Hawks, for that matter. We're probably a little bit away from that. It is interesting, though. Like, you look, Robert Williams is apparently going to have surgery. I saw Woj reported that earlier today. Will miss 4 to 6 weeks. That's obviously interesting for the Cavs because they play Boston twice in their first 7 games of the season. So if Robert Williams is missing those games, those regular season matchups and those head-to-heads can really matter when it comes to seeding, especially if the Eastern Conference is going to be as close as we thought. So obviously something to monitor there. I feel good about going into the season. I cannot believe that we're almost here. Monday next week is media day. Training camp starts right after that. Preseason's around the corner. It's finally here, Carter. Our long wait. An off season that felt like 5 different chapters and 5 completely different teams is almost over.
Let's go, Justin. I can't speculate no more. I got to see it.
We need things to actually talk about. I can't wait for it. Big thanks to everyone tuning in on YouTube. If you want to support us, like, subscribe, click the notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast, you can support us by leaving a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of the Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.
Almost blew a tire, my friend. Bye.
Almost blew a tire.